Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer, the Three Amicos. Today's episode, Adventures in Delaware. Oh, snap! My wood grain! Hey, who's got 400k? Gen X needs his wood grain. Oh, man, let me tell you guys. Here's another episode. Maybe you're listening to this on headphones. Maybe you're driving. People are thinking you're listening to music, right? But you're not there listening to music. What are you doing? You're here with me on a Saturday morning, tapping them. Because you're one sick individual. And this is a story that never ends. It's been 5 years and we're still at it. We're still at it. Well, guys, let me tell you, first of all, this is not going to be financial or legal advice of any kind. If you find yourself in these kind of troubles where random people are reporting you to the IRS and to the Franchise Tax Board, you need to consult a professional. Don't listen to YouTubers. Don't listen to anybody that's not a professional, or you're going to end up like this. Right? And guys, let's start off with what we already know, right? What's being alleged here, that people, drop dime on Happy Home Games, of course, to the IRS and possibly other agencies. Okay, I don't know that they're giving us the whole story, but if they went to the IRS, they probably went to the California State Tax Board, and none of it is good business, right? Because you got to think, okay, these guys in the board meeting, right? And I'm sitting in the background. Let's just pretend, hypothetical, right? I'm sitting in the board meeting, right? And they call an emergency meeting because what? You're dissolving in television. You sold the assets and you're broke, right? And now you need to have a meeting because somebody went and called the IRS, right? And I'm sitting in the background there listening to this, and they're like, hey, you just give us your input. Tell us what you think, right? I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. So they're going, okay, guys, we're going to transfer all of this. We're going to transfer it to this new entity. And I'm going like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, sell it all today. We're just going to transfer it. And I'm going to be like, hey, wait a minute. Somebody just dropped dime on you with the IRS, right? You try to sell this stuff before you even put a pre-order for anything, or you try to invest anything. The feds are probably going to be in here, or the state, or somebody's going to be in here trying to slow you down. But at the end of the day, if they tell me, well, we're going to sell it anyway, we're going to force to sell it anyway, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you to do anything illegal. It's yours to sell, of course, but you have to deal with the ramifications. I'm telling you, you shouldn't do it. This is not a great idea. You should not be transferring assets when you owe investors, when you owe taxes, when you owe all this stuff. And at this point, they're just playing a numbers game, right? Because who are you going to sell? Right? Who are you going to sell with these new properties with Happy Homes LLC? You're trying to sell new customers. Forget about the 9,400 plus investors that were on the FIG. You're getting rid of those. You're not even thinking of those. You're not thinking about the people who have the 600 or 6,000 pre-orders at $100 a piece, right? You're not thinking about any of that. All you're thinking about is raising capital after you sold all the assets out of Intellivision Entertainment Inc., right? And at that point, who is responsible, right? Who is responsible? There's a lot of protections when it comes to incorporations. Of course, this incorporation is private. We don't know really who owns it, other than a couple of people, including Tommy, are set there as founders. So who is liable, right? We know that Tommy wasn't there during this period of time, right? So again, this is not legal or financial advice of any kind, but let's talk about what's going on here, right? First, let me tell you, every legal business entity, whether you're a C Corp, Delaware, or an LLC, in your home state, you're going to have compliance obligations. That's why you need to call a professional, right? Professional tax attorney, professional accountant, right? When I put a team together, those are the kind of people I bring in, right? Trusted people that I've worked with in the past to evaluate quote unquote investment opportunities, right? So we go through all the books, right, to make sure that this is a legal business entity that you're going to buy or invest in. And it doesn't matter if it's a C Corp or an LLC, every home state has their own different rules, right? But when you don't file In the case of Delaware, for example, corporations must file an annual franchise tax reports like the ones from California, and they're suspended from there. And they either have to pay the flat fee, which looks like, based on these documents, if they are believed to be true, that's what they got assessed, a flat fee for how many shares they put out, um, or pay the franchise tax. I would imagine the franchise tax would be less because, you didn't sell anything. You're not selling games. So this to me is just really weird, and it's a huge red flag because, like I said, you could pay anybody to do your taxes, and it would have been less expensive than whatever uh, penalties are occurring here. It's just dumb, right? And this is serious because that means that company can't sign contracts, sue in court, or even continue operations. But since they sold all their assets as far as in television, who knows? Then maybe there isn't anything there to do, right? This is why this is so puzzling, and this is where things especially get messy, right? So, according to multiple sources out there, just the internet, what's being alleged, right? We don't know this to be true. I mean, just things show up on the internet like this, and we just don't know. And if they did transfer assets from a tax delinquent corporation to a new LLC, especially if it's controlled by the same individuals, you know, it can trigger what these people here are basically accusing in television are doing. Whoever's reporting them to the IRS or to the franchise tax board, they want to trigger. I would just have to imagine. Again, guys, to me, these are investors, but they're trying to trigger fraudulent conveyance or successor liability, right? Just in plain English, right? The old company owed creditors, tax agencies, or customers money, right? And the new company is going to profit from the old IPs, right? If these people are successful, or whoever is behind all this is successful, and they get into this into court, the court could rule, right, that the assets were transferred in bad faith. Again, you need to consult an attorney, okay? But these are the type of things that typically happen hypothetically, right? If this whole story is to be believed. But they don't comment on any of this stuff. So you're just kind of like, okay, well, so you just owe 400K, you're not going to do anything about it, right? So, if it can be proven, those assets can be, crawled back, and the people behind the maneuver to transfer those assets, oh, they could be in a pickle. They could be in a pickle, right? So what do you do, right? Forget about this complete crap show that I would never invest in, right? This is not a good investment opportunity, in my humble opinion. Consult with a professional, but I think that, any professional would ask you, wait a minute, these assets are being transferred from a company that owes 400,000 in tax, right? You would have to give them all the information, and they would have to do their due diligence. But after they stop laughing, they'll take your money and start giving you consultations, right? Because you want to invest in companies that, number one, have good standing, right? That they file their annual franchise tax reports and, do all things, by the book, that they keep proper records, right? This is what is so troubling of these companies, of just people reporting you to the IRS and stuff like that, because the IRS is going to want to look at W-2s or 1099s, anything of that sort, right? And hopefully these investors don't take them to court. If not, hello, Amico forever, testers, hello. Yeah, you're agents of the company. Are you ready to get deposed? Hello. Imagine you're doing work for free, right? So here's a great idea. Let's do free labor for millionaires. And then we'll make you profit. No. It's not going to make you a profit, but may you have to testify in court. Geez, hopefully not. But what a crazy thing that would be, wouldn't it? Right? Wouldn't that be something? Like Tommy used to say. And remember, this Happy New Homes, or whatever they're calling it, The consoles that they do have, they're worth something, right? They can be valued. So you would have to value these consoles between, for example, the bid that I made, that no longer is good, by the way. I'm not paying these guys a single cent. Nobody took me up on the offer, but previously offered $1,000 for one of the test units, right? And Tony bought a shell for, what was it, $2,300, right? So you could give a value, right, to those consoles, and they would ask, well, wait a minute, these are assets. How come these haven't been sold in order to pay your tax debt, right? And that would be a question. Right? That would be a question if you're closing the company down and all that stuff, right? And you really need to avoid commingling funds, right? Treat the business and personal accounts like church and state. You have to separate, right? Any company that you're going to invest in, you're looking for that. You want to make sure that the owner's not using, company money to pay their own bills, for example, or something like that, right? Those are things that you look for when you're trying to purchase a company. And if they're a subsidiary of another company that may be closed, you want to make sure that that was handled properly, right? You have to handle shutdowns properly. You have to file a certificate of dissolution, for example. Notify tax authorities, settle debts, and all that stuff, right? All the plain things to do. And you want to make sure that the companies that you invest in don't play shell games, transferring assets, for example. In the case of Intellivision and this newly formed Happy Home Games, if the IPs transferred include those promised to pre-order customers, license to outside developers, there may be a downstream liability, as they call it. Right? That, after you consult with your attorneys and all that stuff, they might find that. I don't know. And especially if the games are repackaged for profit, while refunds still remain unpaid, unmet, right? That just attracts legal scrutiny. This is why this reporting is so bad, guys, because the paperwork that's going to be required to answer the questions of the IRS, man, it's going to take hundreds and hundreds of man hours, right? And who's left over there to do this? Who do you think is going to do this, right? Which one of these three gentlemen is going to sit there and go through all the tax bearing? Who of them that you've seen has the business acumen, right, to handle these type of accusations? Maybe Phil Adam, maybe, but that would mean that he would have to be in the U.S. full time until this gets absolutely resolved, or you hire an attorney, tax attorney, right? But either way, it's not a great thing. It's not a great look, right? But who is going to take the fall for this? Who is going to pay the $440,000? Now, this is incorporated, and these are, it's a privately held company. We don't know exactly who the owners of Intellivision are, right? But you have to figure they are the ones that were announced previously. I mean, you have Tommy and somebody else is that quote unquote co-founder. So you may think, okay, well, maybe they have a stake in it, right? This is why this is so difficult. And when it goes to any type of paperwork that appears online, these people are going to pull it out again and come out with the receipts. When you hold, these kind of companies that have to, file with the states, all your documents are public. So these people that are in the systems right now downloading every single document from Amico are going to have access to them. And we're going to know exactly what's going on. But where is it going to end? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting, let me tell you. Because the $400,000 just don't get, they just don't get forgiven, right? They're just not going to go, don't worry about it. So, we'll get it next time. No, no, somebody has to answer for this. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Phil Adam? Is it his fault? Is it John Alvarado's fault? Is it Tommy's fault? I don't really care. I just want somebody to get me my wood grain. All right, humans, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.